They all split.
His wife wanted their child today.
Swinging
I'm just teasing. He probably doesn't watch TV.
So last week, I knew it was just tons.
He won't be watching TV tonight.
So he sends me a note last night. He's like, "Hey, did they clean that up before the new storm?"
Like shimmy in the
So he's like, "Oh." All right, here we go. I'd like to call this regular scheduled meeting for Bedford County School Board tonight, Thursday, February 13th. Ms. Johnson, if you would, before I ask you to take roll, Mr. Daniels did let me know he would not be here tonight.
Mr. M. Hill,
Here?
Mr. S. Hill,
Here.
Mr. Holbrook,
Here.
Dr. Hubach,
Here.
Mr. Knight,
Here.
Mrs. Purvis. Here. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you. We did have 1.03, motion to allow board members to participate remotely, but we are not going to need that tonight, so we're going to skip over that 1.03. And then do I have a motion to approve the agenda for February 13th?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Holbrook. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hill. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. If you will, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Start our moment of silence. Thank you. All right, we'll go to 2.01, Superintendent's Report. Mr. DePere.
I'd like to start this evening with kind of a paraphrase of where I've been for the last 6 weeks. I will begin to divulge this to principals and different things in schools. Over the holidays, I'm going to keep this very simple. I contracted an immune compromised disease from that affected my entire body. And so I just want to thank individuals here who worked with me, kept me in the loop, and got me through that. There's a lot of people that I owe a lot to, and even local doctors, to getting me where I was at UVA Medical. And so I'm on the mends, and I'm improving every day. So I'd like to thank you for all your prayers and concerns. In a related area, in my absence, I'd like to just specifically thank the support of the school board and the executive team, as they did work to keep me through this process attached. I'm grateful for all those that assisted. I do appreciate your concerns moving forward. I am still not out of the woods. I'm in a compromised state for about 6 months. I deeply am appreciative to all of you who have kept me in your prayers. I'd also like to convey my heartfelt thank you, because I don't think I've done this publicly yet, for the school board's trust that they've placed in me back in July to put me into the role of the superintendent of Bedford County Public Schools. It is greatly appreciated. As part of this thank you, I would also like to take this opportunity to now turn this on them to some extent and recognize them, since February is School Board Appreciation Month. Thank you for your diligence, your dedication to Bedford County Public School Division in support of our students, the executive team, the central office, and the local school-based administration, faculty, and support staff. Thank you for your time, your commitment. And Ms. Haynes has certificates for each of you. Thank you. I'd also like to thank the executive team for rallying around me in that July appointment and for creating a cohesive team that exhibits a complete desire to reach best practices as we are charged to academically prepare our students for the 3E readiness framework of employment, enlistment, and enrollment. Their acceptance has been very appreciative, and I am greatly thank you to all of you for doing that. As I've stated several times in local meetings, I think my honeymoon period has come to an end. You could call that July to December. You know, coming from Florida, I had to learn a lot of different acronyms. I had to learn a lot of different ways in which budgets are formed. It doesn't happen the same way in Florida, but a lot has had to be learned. And so I thank you for that patience in that process. During this time, as I have told you before, I made over 50 trips to schools and did a SWOT analysis with principals, faculty, staff, school counselors, leadership teams, central office, and with parents in all 3 zones. The fall semester included classroom visits, special events, and I joined every opportunity that I could to go to vast opportunities, Superintendent Region 5 meetings, VDOE, state level discussions to learn state oversight and their influence of public education. So I think that period's over. I told the executives the other day, the honeymoon is over, and you can expect me to make a more cooperative and effort to be part of all of these discussions, because at this point, I think I'm up to speed. As I stated in last month's board meeting, and I don't think you guys understood, I stood up here and my eyesight was so bad I couldn't see the screen. And so I made it through that, what was an analysis of the SWOT, and it yielded 4 things, and I want to go back and make sure that I cover those again. In strength, what I found on all of my visits is that we have a strong, dedicated, and highly respected teaching staff in Bedford County. And I'm very proud to have learned that. In weaknesses, we have much to do to improve faculty morale, attracting new hires, retention, and specifically holding on to new hires in their first 5 years of employment. And the need financially to recognize all of our faculty and staff at all levels with pay scales that make us competitive, a competitive option in Southwest Virginia. In the area of weakness, we need to delicately advocate for student mental health and family support where those needs exist. It's a known fact, healthy kids learn better. In the budget process, we started this process very early, October 2024 to January 2025. I want to thank the School Board Finance Committee for initiating a line-by-line review of all revenue, expenses, including the operating budget, the textbook fund, the nutrition fund, maintenance, transportation, construction, and maintenance reserve fund. The process was tedious, yet looked at every aspect of our overall budget. This review enabled the executive team and the financial committee the time and collaboration to create a preliminary budget that could be delivered early to the Board of Supervisors with good conversation several weeks ago and depth and understanding the school division's present financial needs. This discussion also included an observation that Dr. Calvert put together for us on local analysis with retention within the first 5 to 30 years and the need to seek competitive pay so that we can compete with surrounding counties. In review, I also had many conversations with VAS and VDOE Region 5 in recruitment, retention, and pay to substantiate the request that we were making in our division. Thank you to the School Board and Board of Supervisors, financial committees for a robust and cooperative discussion. Changing note a little bit on the high school sports front, the Virginia High School League, VHSL, announced February 10th that the executive committee had voted to bring the league in compliance with the federal executive order, keeping men out of women's sports. The executive order limits in girls' sports to students assigned female by birth only. This takes effect immediately. On the local front, I am proud to say that this spring's initiatives will include celebrating Bedford County Public Schools' rise to the state's achievement rankings for 2023 and 24 to the rank of 36th. In a state of, I believe, 131 or 132 divisions. This is no small task. This climb has been steady over the last 5 testing seasons, moving our students' scores from 56th in the state in 2019 to the present day 36. We will continue to support the central office and the school-based administration, leadership teams, and faculty for the upcoming SOL process in the spring testing. We do not take this climb lightly, and we will continue to work hard to continue this academic success. I will also this spring, and I don't know how yet, maybe virtual, I will follow up with all of the stakeholders that I met with on the SWOT analysis to give them my results, which I had promised to do. The doctors will not let me go school to school like I have been doing because I'm compromised. If you see me in a mask, it's not because you have something, it's not because I have something to give you, it's something that I have to make sure that I'm safe from. And right now, it is flu season, so that is another issue to itself. We will also follow up this spring on the governor's Executive Order 33, bell-to-bell cell phone free schools as part of the division-wide discussion for schools, students, families, to put our students in a best-case scenario to continue our academic gains across the region and the state. The next item I'd like to talk about is the math adoption process. The District Textbook Math Committee has been working since early October to preview all of the BDOE-approved math textbooks. Copies of the books have been sent to every school. The following textbook companies will be available for public view this month. For elementary, Kidam and Heinemann. For middle school, Kidam, Savas, and Math Space. And for high school, Kidam, Savas, Math Space, and McGraw-Hill. You, the parents, and the public can explore these resources and provide feedback at the open houses, which will be February 19th, 9 to 4, February 20th, 12 to 7, and February 21st, 9 to 4 in this room, large boardroom. If these dates do not work for you, you may contact your local school to set up a time to review those textbooks on your local campus building. And then last, I'd like to address something that it's not the first time in my career I've addressed it, and it's something that I've observed over the last 6 months. I would like to address the issue that I have experienced probably twice in 25 years in my educational leadership. And I want to make sure that I don't let this slide. While in early conversations with supportive town hall parents in BCPS, which I would believe would constitute a supportive parent group, I have also seen a very small group of individuals start to play on social media as to how they perceive stuff. If you get your school news, confused view of best practice and opinions from social media, I would ask you to stop. If you wish to participate in public forum, I would encourage you to do so. Please understand that how you form your opinions, push your opinions on others, and often skew this information and incorrect facts published by individuals, preconceived ideas, and personal experience that don't apply to the general population. In the future, I encourage you to join conversations by seeking answers by pushing up the ladder of proper information protocol. Start by addressing your individual child's needs on your with your school-based leadership. Proper channels will lead to information that you can best use to support your child. Be properly informed, supportive, and collaborative, and be an advocate for your child. Please don't join social media narrative that bashes the hard work of our faculty and support staff who ultimately strive to work together and support and move our children academically and eventually fulfill our ultimate mission, which is to provide equal opportunities to enable all students to think critically, collaborate, create, communicate, and become productive citizens. And I encourage all parents to join this process. Thank you in advance for your cooperation. This concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. 2.02 for your 2024 audit, Mr. Hagler.
Yes, good evening. Happy to report to you that the audit was completed probably back in December, and for both the county and for the school board on our financials. Happy to report that there were no findings, so we've got a clean audit report and opinion from our outside auditors. On the agenda tonight is posted 4 documents: the opinion letter from the auditors, the internal control comments, Also required communications, and then a very big document, it's called the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. And that has some subset data in there for ours, but it's both the county and us combined, and some data in there for you to review. But proud to report that no findings on internal controls and a clean audit this year for us. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions? Mr. Hagler, you've got 2.03 second quarter forecast.
Yes, the second quarter forecast was presented to the Finance Committee, and we reviewed that. So I'm presenting something that's already been reviewed by them tonight, and we'll go over that. This is data as of December 31st. I take that data and kind of project where we'll come in for the entire year. So this is a mid-year review, but also predicting where we'll come in. The first thing we'll take a look at is the revenue side. Also, let me just note that there are some supplemental appropriations that will come in the information area tonight that are already built into this. So just letting you know that. You can see on here projecting about $147,000 less than budget on the revenue. The biggest changes on here are state funds and sales tax. As we get more sales tax, we get less state funds. It's part of the formula that the more sales tax you get it deducted off your basic aid. In addition, we had lower enrollment than projected, so that's why the basic aid is less. So those were the big movers there on this, but pretty close to on budget here for $124 million, about $124,000 less than anticipated, and that's as of mid-year, my projection. Any questions on the revenue side? We'll go on to the expenditures. Not much changes from the first quarter, but this is the second quarter. It's a little bit harder to project. You have to project out halfway through the year where you think you're going to be at the end of the year. I will say off the bat, this was prior to the really cold snaps that we had, so I expect our electrical and heating to be a little bit more unfavorable when I do my third quarter forecast. But as you look down through here, projecting overall expenditures in the operating fund to be $511,000 less than budgeted. So when you combine that with the revenue, about a $364,000 ending balance on our operating fund. That's like 0.0029 of the overall budget. So pretty close to on budget there. I don't see any concerns with not bringing this budget in. The one category to make note of is this was in the first quarter. It continues to be some pressure on the maintenance major category there. If we have to, we're going to have to probably do a category transfer after I do my third quarter forecast and move some money into maintenance from one of the other departments to bring the budget in online. Be happy to answer any questions on the expenditure side.
What's the main driver of the increase in the maintenance?
I'd say there's been inflationary pressure on our contracted services, the materials we're buying. Also, electrical's coming in. I'm projecting part of that, about 100 to 120,000 of that is electrical coming in higher than budgeted. It just continues to go up as most people got their bills and my bills. So that continues to be pressure. I went up on the this year's budget from last year, but not quite enough.
Yep.
So
Fair enough, thank you.
and when we presented the budget, I went up even more on electrical next year to try to accommodate for that.
Randy, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how the maintenance department works, because I've heard that there's a program where they can just check their phones for what they need to do instead of having to go in and report, and saves.
We do a little bit of both, but from the committee, the finance committee, we are really looking at probably upgrading that program. We have a work order system that the secretaries or principals in the schools can put in a work order that gets routed from our maintenance supervisor to our maintenance crew to respond to those and go check those out. So those come down to their devices, so they can respond directly to those. We need to look for something a little bit more robust that's going to keep track of those maintenance repairs, how many calls, and so we can do some more analytics on what's happening with our equipment in our buildings. Even also how many times we do preventive maintenance. There's a bill in the Senate and I think in the House that might have made it through that is going to put a lot more on us as far as documenting what we do with our HVAC equipment and air quality. So yes, we try to dispatch those work orders directly to our maintenance crew. But they do come together sometimes because putting your heads together sometimes, and when you've got a problem, somebody else can go along with you and they can solve. So periodically, they do come together and kind of discuss what they're dealing with.
Understand.
Yes, ma'am. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to our other funds, the nutrition fund. As last year and also with the committee, we are keeping a close eye on this one. I would say inflation has really hit this fund pretty hard as far as cost of food, inflation on salaries. This has traditionally been a self-funded account, but as you can see, at mid-year, about $475,000 underwater there.
So
We are taking proactive steps to increase revenue. We are taking proactive steps to look at the cost in each school and how many kids are being served in each school. We might be doing some movement of staff and reducing staff. And we've already started talking to managers. I was at a manager meeting on what different things that we could do to actually increase revenue on this and doing everything we can to get this to where it's self-sustaining. But last year it lost a lot of it, and we continue to do that this year. So we'll keep the committee appraised of this. But if it continues long-term, our reserves will be erode, and that we might have to move local money into the nutrition program to make it self-sustaining long-term. Mr. Hill, I'm sorry, did I?
I was just gonna say, this is definitely one that the finance committee has put an eye on. Just to kind of have those conversations, exactly what you just shared, as far as there's a lot of requirements that cause these, costs to continue to rise and go up. I'm interested, and I won't ask you this because I don't think we know the answer yet. If federal dollars do go back to the states, does that relieve us from this nutrition program? I know we'll still get our dollars, but do some of the red tape that is attached to what we have to do through nutrition, possibly some of that?
Too early to tell on that, and some of the dollars don't, I don't know if it all goes through the Department of Education. Some might become through Department of Agriculture. So whichever department that funds that.
Okay.
I will say that we had a meeting with the managers, very positive. Some great ideas coming out there. We got more work to do, but some excitement on trying to, address some issues and trying to get this self-sustaining, and I really appreciated their help on that.
Brandon,
Yes, sir.
what's the source of the beginning balance, that 17?
That's carryover balance that's been in existence over the life of the nutrition fund. So we're allowed to carry over that balance and where it is. So those are reserves. The state really doesn't want us to they don't want us to have more than like 3 or 4 months of carryover. So actually for the last 2 years, during COVID, there was a lot of federal money that came in. So this balance has been coming down. We've been told to spend it down, and we've been mandated to spend it down. They don't want to see huge balances there. So even at this level, the 1.7 was a little bit higher than I should have had in reserves. But
When you're losing
eventually,
$500,000 a year.
if you keep doing that, there won't be any reserves. So I don't really want to go much lower than this, but in the end, if we have to, we will have to divert money. We're going to do everything we can not to.
I know this conversation is more, financially based, but you kind of alluded to this with the red tape and the requirements. Just for clarity, can you just quickly describe exactly or summarize how we define what is provided in their lunch, in the school lunch? In other words, how is it dictated what we serve? Like what type of meals and those kinds
It's
of
part of the food program when you apply for the free and reduced lunch numbers and stuff with federal applications through the state. They dictate what qualifies as a meal, what a child has to take on the plate, how many servings of salt, sugar, breads. Everything is a formula. Dictated that you have to have so much of this, not this, you can't do this. And Washington gets involved in this, you've seen different administrations really kind of impact what's happened in our schools. And it goes back and forth with each administration, and then we got to adopt to that. So
There's very little local control of what we're serving.
there's some, you have choices on what the meals are gonna be and stuff, but you wouldn't be allowed to serve like chicken nuggets every day. I mean, that's our favorite meal. On Thursdays, we're not gonna mess with that, but the whole wheat and a lot of those things are dictated, and you have to have all that has to be stated and online and presented to anybody that's taking a meal there. We talked to the finance committee about there, and I think both of them were like shocked that all the things that we have to do. Our nutrition supervisor came in and talked to them, and Chris is actually in that business, so he's kind of like, can you do this? Like, no, we can't do that. Can you do this? No, we can't do that. And he's like frustrated.
Yeah.
It's what comes with it.
And I mean, I don't get the best feedback concerning school lunches from the students, and I don't think it's anyone here's fault. It's not a local problem, but I just wanted to kind of
Yep.
start talking about that because they don't like the lunch. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm
Well, I'd say half of it in the elementary school goes in the trash. I've eaten lunch with my children several times.
It's, when you look at some of the waste, I agree. Sometimes that's frustrating, but that has to be a complete meal before we
Yeah.
can claim it.
Claim
And so
it,
you're
yeah.
going, well, the kid doesn't want that, but it has to be on the plate or we can't claim it.
It's not bad cooking, it's bad
Bad food.
ingredients.
Well, we're gonna do more surveys. This is great discussion, but
We've had that conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
Those are the conversations.
And I'm sorry, I know this is
No,
financial,
This,
but-
I think it's important. One of the other thing is we have to pay a certain amount for a meal and we can only charge so much for a meal. And in some cases, we're losing money to provide a meal that we're required to provide. And then half of it goes in the trash because, like Randy said, in order for it to count as a meal, there has to be certain fruits and a certain vegetable, even a vegetable sometime at breakfast, keep me honest there. It's just the, yeah.
but it has to have the components to qualify.
Yeah, and so half the stuff is going in the trash and you're not allowed to sit it to be able to take home. It has to be consumed at the school, which is another frustration for me that we're paying for food that we're seeing go in the trash. So it's conversation we've definitely had at a finance committee level. We've challenged Randy. It sounds like he's having some different conversations with the managers to be able to push that, but
And big picture, we couldn't really change a lot unless we were not getting the funding. Unless we were doing it all ourselves somehow.
Yeah, and it's, the federal funding, you're talking, $2.53 million that you would forego there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that there's some states, and I don't know that Virginia is doing it yet, but that are getting rid of the red dyes and all of those other ingredients that are really toxic for our kids. Do we have any of those regulations in there yet?
I'll have
Because I
to check
think
on
they're
that.
coming.
I do not know.
And that's gonna definitely affect our bottom line.
Manufacturers will adjust. They do adjust, but it takes time to meet the qualifications for anything that's gonna be inserted in schools. So if that isn't, back when, I think somebody mentioned when there was a whole wheat mandate that came down very quickly, manufacturers had to adjust to that so they could sell through the schools. So in regards to anything coming down from the federal, we'll have to adjust to, and so will the manufacturers of what qualifies and what doesn't.
Well, I mean, I think it's good that they take some of those toxic things out of our foods, but I know that's gonna affect us.
I think the biggest goal in increasing revenues, what do the kids like? What's a quality meal and what can we serve? So I'm engaging the managers on that so we can kind of address that and kind of putting all of our heads together between schools and see if we can increase revenues there. Yeah. Textbook fund, once again, the same as the nutrition fund, we're allowed to roll forward our ending balances. We put local funds in, state funds into this fund, and it accumulates over time because we have large adoptions at different times. So you can see, right now, we're sitting on about $1.8 million, but I believe we have a math adoption coming up here, which Dr. Woodford and others were mentioning, so those materials are available, but that's gonna be a large expenditure during the summer coming up. So that will bring that balance quite a bit down when we do that.
A question about the textbooks. Are there that many differences, and this might be for Dr. Trosper, is there that much of a difference from the math requirements for SOLs and so on, that we can't use the textbooks that we're using and just have some professional development or in areas that need to be changed?
Yeah, the DOE has adopted totally new standards, and so they're quite different in many different ways, and we could maybe update a little bit more in detail if you wanted, but yeah, I mean, the new textbooks are specifically designed for the new standards.
The other thing is that they run on 7-year contracts, so even if we wanted to keep our old adoption, we would have to repay to buy it again.
So, we did that several years ago. We decided the math book we were using was good enough. And we felt like it met the standards, and it was still $1 million because we had to re-up for.
Is that because of the onlines?
It's just you buy the subscription, the consumables, the pieces, and you can't access them after. We had to do a new contract for new consumables, any updates they wanted to provide. So either way, you sometimes.
So in order to avoid, reinventing the wheel too much with for the teachers, are the new textbooks that you're considering, are they the same publishers or are they completely different publishers?
Ideally, we would like to have the same publisher K-12, but that's not always possible. That's kind of been our goal, but it just really depends on what's been approved, and they're still going through another adoption phase with the DOE, so we'll have a final list in the next few months, I think. The next few weeks. So we'd like to do that, but really we just look at it by elementary, middle, and high school, and then we pick what's best for kids at that level.
And I think you're asking the current textbook they're using, right now, that publisher's not on the approved adoption list any longer. So they may be in the third phase. We might see them come out, and if they do, we'll ask for copies of that. Mrs. Bowyer is pretty connected with the VDOE, so if we even have a good feeling that they've made it through what they call the phase one, she's asked for publishers to send samples of that so that the math committee can look at that. So, but right now, our current publisher's not on the approved list.
And I personally don't want to be married to a publisher. Every 7 years, we need to have options. And just like what we've set up for our parents to have feedback and to come in and review what we are trying to adopt or looking to adopt, we definitely want to have those options. And a publisher can sometimes change hands and start adding things that we're not interested in having in our textbooks as well. So I want to make sure we don't set a standard of having to keep the same publisher.
No.
And you don't want to piecemeal either because it becomes more expensive.
The thing I think that frustrates me is the standards continue to change. It's like, it's a moving target, so how can you ever compare, you can't compare apples to apples. I mean, that's part of the
I
frustration.
struggle with it too because math is
Math.
Math is not changing. But the methods are changing, I understand. It's just frustrating that it's not a book and a piece of paper that you could use over and over again, because math goes back for thousands of years.
And I'm hearing from the teachers, some of them frustrated with that same thing, and having to get used to a completely different curriculum, completely different textbooks, and adapting to all of that, especially like the English that we just did last year. I've had a lot of people who've said that they've been frustrated with that, so I just don't want to cause more stress to my teachers, to the teachers either. A lot of them have their, and I want them improving. I'm not saying that we stay stagnant, I'm not saying that, but I just want to make sure that we're doing all we can to make life not as crazy for them.
And I'll say too,
actually-
that's why it's important to make sure all of us are involved in talking to Richmond and pushing what we want to see in Bedford County. So those decisions are made there and handed down to us of what the standards are. And just a reminder to all of us, we need to be pushing in Richmond.
And I will say, publishers, honestly, I wish I had the resources that our teachers had today. You pretty much, in our English curriculum, it will create a standards-based lesson plan, framework. It'll give you what, students who are weak here, what can you do with them? Students who are above grade level, it'll give you that. So there are a lot of good things that have come with some of our new resources. You used to not get the small trade books in elementary. We get that with our adoptions. And so I think sometimes it's hard for those of us who've been in education a long time, the pendulum swings up and down, up and down. But one thing we can guarantee is that if we are following the standards and we have a textbook that can assist our teachers, especially with teachers who are coming to us with not as much experience, that we are teaching accurate information and, you know, using the new science of reading and the new best practices that are out there. So I think there are a lot of resources. I just think sometimes it's so much going on and a lot that the DOE requires and a lot that the state requires that add to teachers. So I think, yeah, having the teacher feedback has been really good, and we did that with reading too, so.
Quick question about the math textbook. I've got a third grader. Every year since kindergarten at the orientation, I get a math book, brand new textbook, never been used, and they go, "Hey, we don't really use this. Take it home, practice." It always ends up, being kindling for me.
Yeah.
I don't know how they got there. I don't know why.
So it's the additional consumable, and it's part of the adoption for that particular math textbook. They send us brand new consumables every year, and they do it for 7 years. It's part of the original contract. There are multiple consumables, so there are some that are used in the classroom. There are some that are just extras you get, and we've got closets full in some cases. So, I'm not exactly sure which consumable you're talking about, but I do know that sometimes teachers will do that. They might have multiple consumables, so they don't want it to go to waste, so they send it home for extra practice, but they still are using their main text in the classroom. So it all comes with the contract.
It's always seemed like waste to me, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
I was sure there was a reason behind it.
Yeah.
So are they using consumables or are they doing their work on the computer? On the,
It's a variety. So I think all of our elementary school, they have textbooks, they have consumables. Middle and high, they have classroom sets of textbooks. I think it goes both ways. I think sometimes teachers are putting some of that work online. Some of them are doing a combination of work it on paper, answer it online. And then our younger grades, I don't see too many younger grades on computers doing math. I mean, most of them are using the consumables, paper, pencil, the textbooks that are in the classroom, so.
Okay. Good thing on this, when I presented the budget also, is that we were going up on our local funds, and I kind of project 7 years out, and we don't really need to go up much on our local funds. I think we're where we need to be, so there won't be a burden on that in the next few years. And Dr. Woodford and I review that each year, and to make sure that we are good for the next 7 years of adoptions. Maintenance reserve fund. The facility committee reviews this whenever we meet and what projects on there. Detailed in the budget and the budget that was presented. There is a 5-year CIP plan, capital improvement plan, which details when projects are going to be, which projects are ongoing right now, which ones are coming on, and when they are projected to be done. Right now, our balance is at about $7.8 million. A lot of that will be used in the next year as we start to develop HVAC replacement for both Stan River High School and Liberty High School. Those are going to be big projects, probably in the tune of $5 million each. So more money coming in next year on top of that will pay for that. But that's why we were building up money for those 2 big projects coming up. Any questions on that one? And then on the last one is our health insurance fund. We are self-insured, and I guess just to summarize it, we began the year with about 4.8, and we're at 4.6 right now. About $200,000 down. That's pretty good considering the year we had last year. We saw a really tough year last year with claims. So midway through the year, I'm pretty pleased with this, that we're only $200,000 down. Last year, our fund balance started well over $6 million, and we ended up in the $4 million range, almost $2 million erosion of our reserves. So right now, we're holding pretty good, and hopefully that will allow us to keep the, and based upon this is where I'm recommending that we only go up about 7% on the rates next year. If it was another year of erosion of million plus, we would have had to go up a lot more. So pretty pleased with what I see mid-year. We still have a half year to go, and we'll see what happens there. So that's the financial presentation. Any questions on that? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hagley, you're up again, supplemental appropriations.
Okay, this feeds into, once again, these were presented to the Finance Committee. And so there are several supplemental appropriations. This is for information tonight, be brought back at the next meeting for action, and then I'll take them over to the Board of Supervisors for appropriation. The first one is a security grant, $61,000 in federal funds. So we are expending that money down, and this is requesting to add it to the budget so we can go ahead and appropriate that. Second one, the next three are in our title grants. We're allowed to carry over money in our title grants. There was a little bit too much money on there. We're spending those down, so these three grants are going to recognize that we're spending those amounts down. However, once they come down to a more appropriate level, they have to be self-sustaining going forward. So this is bringing some reserves down into the current year. We'll spend those monies down. Typically, my grants that are reoccurring, I want to have 2 or 3 months of reserves going into the next year. We had a little bit more in some of these, so we intentionally are spending this down to get it more to an appropriate level. And actually, the federal government looks at this very closely. They don't want people banking 2 or 3 years of federal grant money because it doesn't look good that you don't spend your money. So this is just to get them in line. After this year, the grants will pay for themselves. And so those were the 4 supplemental appropriations. The 3 other ones are Title I, Title 6B, and Title II. Happy to answer any questions you have on those.
And we'll take action next month on those, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Goes back for
Okay, so we
action.
have until next month to call if you have questions, if you don't have any tonight. All right. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Yeah, I make a motion to go into closed section pursuant to Code of Virginia 2.2-3711A1 for the discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of civic employees of Bedford County Public Schools.
Have a motion by Mr. S. Hill. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Dubak. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are in closed session. Do I have a motion to come out of closed session?
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Purvis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Holbrook. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are out of closed session. If you will, Ms. Johnson, certify.
Whereas the Bedford County School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And where Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Bedford County School Board hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in a closed meeting to which the certification applies, and only such public business matters identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Before I ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, I wanted to call out 7.05 payroll certification. You will notice, probably already noticed, but I wanted to call it out, is for December 2024 and January 2025. And the reason why December is on here is because when we had our January meeting, the executive team had just got back from time off, and so it was not on here. So I wanted to call that out, that we are approving both payroll certification for December 2024 and January 2025. So with that being said, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Purvis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hill. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the consent agenda is approved. Ms. Johnson, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
We are at a place where we can either start with matters from the board or public comment, which does not start for 7 more minutes. I do see where both people who are signed up for public comment are present. Are we okay to move that up
Yes, yes, sir.
to 5:53? Okay, all right, good deal. I just wanted to double check before I went into that.
If any additional people from the public
Come in. Oh, yeah, I
join
would.
the meeting, I would give them the
Yep.
opportunity.
Absolutely. All right. So with that being said, we will go into public comment. The public comment portion of tonight's agenda is limited to 40 minutes. Speakers are asked to state their name and voting district. The school board is here to listen to your comments, but will not engage or respond to speakers during this 40-minute period. Please remember that this is a public meeting and that we expect all speakers to refrain from any foul, profane, abusive, or hateful language during their comments or any time while in attendance during this meeting. We also ask that speakers keep their remarks objective and about the school in nature. Please keep all comments limited to matters related to the schools, to the public schools, and any comments that are harassing or amount to a personal attack against any identifiable individual, whether board member or staff or student, or having the potential to cause unnecessary delay or disruption to this meeting are prohibited. This is a public meeting for public matters. If a speaker is not present when their name is called, we will proceed with the next name on the list. An individual who has not signed up to speak may not substitute for that time slot. Individuals will have 4 minutes to address the board. An alarm will sound when an individual has 30 seconds remaining, and a second alarm will sound when the allotted 4 minutes have expired. When this second alarm sounds, please discontinue speaking and allow the next person in line to come to the podium. Should you be unable to finish your comments, please send or give them to Ms. Johnson, and she will give them to board members. Please do not adjust the microphone at the podium as it has been positioned for optimum audio quality. Our first public comment, or speaker tonight is Mr. Dave Dietrich.
I'm Dave Dietrich from the 4th. Ladies and gentlemen, last month we discussed the school calendar. One speaker expressed concern that the term winter holiday was changed to Christmas break, winter holiday. The speaker suggested that Christmas break might offend some people. By the way, that person was very polite and I think fair when she presented her case. The challenge, of course, is that many, if not most citizens, appear to recognize that the period is having religious significance. What about their preferences? Apparently, out of deference to the citizens who may not wish to recognize the period in any religious way, the term winter holiday was retained. Yet the term Christmas break must be eliminated, so it was argued. By doing so, would we be denying people a fundamental right to religious liberty? Would we also be promoting de facto another form of religious belief, or perhaps more precisely, non-belief? It seems as though the current dual nomenclature accommodates divergent beliefs, practices, and traditions without doing our neighbors harm. I wish to end now with a brief story. On the eve of D-Day, General Dwight D. Eisenhower sent a letter to every soldier, sailor, and airman under his command. Ike displayed full confidence in their collective capability, courage, and perseverance to win. He also reminded them that they were embarking on a just cause. He ended his brief but historic message with these words: "Let us all beseech the blessing of Almighty God upon the great and noble undertaking." Would these words be allowed today? Hopefully, yes, as the founders left us with freedom of religion, not for freedom from religion, as was the case in the former Soviet Union and in Jacobin France. Thank you.
Robert Ashwell.
I am a resident of Huddleston, and Brooke is not a school board. There's been a lot of conversation, as you certainly know, about the potential need to close Susie Gibson and an unnamed elementary school and lay off a number of assistant principals. Why? Because we may not have enough money to operate our school system. So as a school board and a community that believes in public schools, it's our responsibility to convince the Board of Supervisors that our school system is worthy of more funding. There are a number of ways to go about it. I have a couple of suggestions this evening. Number one, celebrate and advertise the excellence of Bedford County Public Schools. For example, our students scored 36 out of 131 school districts in spring SOL testings. As I understand it, that is a pretty significant gain from the previous year. This is a particularly remarkable feat since our school system ranks, 103rd out of 131 school districts in per pupil expenditures, and we rank 107 out of 131 in teacher salaries. Pretty remarkable. This excellent performance is due to the grit and dedication of the staff of Bedford County Public Schools. We need to keep them. We need to let our school employees know how valuable they are and how much we appreciate their contributions daily. We need to scream from the mountains and down at Smith Mountain Lake and everywhere in between what a good job you folks, our folks, are doing. Success begets success. By doing so, we will pick up some of our homeschool and private school students who have left us. And we'll send a message to the community that yes, we can. Step two, the school board, with the help of principal and central office staff and other folks, would be well advised to recruit parents, grandparents, PTA, PTO members, and community members who are willing to lobby fellow community members and supervisors for legitimate school funding. This committee should be formed, and it should be a permanent year-to-year committee that deals with budget preparation. It would be very helpful to educate this committee as to the school finances. In other words, let them understand where we've been, where we are, and hopefully where we're going. They need to understand that so that as people criticize in the community, they can explain that that's not right. Thank you.
That is all that we had signed up for public comment. Is there anyone else who would like to speak tonight? And it is after 6 o'clock, so everyone's had an opportunity, so I will close public comment time for tonight's meeting. Thank you. All right. Next will be the matters from the board, 8.01, which is the board member committee assignments. If you guys recall, we agreed last month that we would wait until the District 3 board seat had been appointed for us to confirm what our plans were for this year's committee appointments. So what I will do, I'm just gonna have the list. I'm gonna go through, and if you're on that committee and you want to stay, or if there's another one you're interested in, but we have to have at least one on the committees, if not, but no more than two. The first one on the list is for the Roanoke Valley Gov School. That one is currently vacant, and so I will need someone to raise their hand on that one. Dr. Wolf, to keep me honest, it's once a month.
It's actually almost like once a quarter.
Okay, so they're doing like CBCC. All right, so once a quarter.
And they do their board meetings at night. They're at 6:30 at Patrick Henry, or the Gov School, which is at Patrick Henry High School.
All right, do I have anyone that's interested in the Roanoke Valley Gov School meets once a quarter, 6:30 Patrick Henry High School? All right, I'm gonna come back to that one. We gotta have somebody. All right, CV, Central Virginia Gov School, STEM Academy, Ms. Purvis, you were on that last year. Is that something that you're interested in staying on?
That's fine.
Okay. Is there anyone else that wanted Central Virginia Gov School? All right, so Ms. Purvis, we will keep you on that. CTE Advisory, last year was Mr. Holbrook and Mr. Nelms. Mr. Holbrook, is that something you're interested in staying on?
Absolutely.
Okay. And CTE Advisory? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Hill?
And that's every other month. It's every month, but 1 month it's Zoom in person.
Okay. Laurel Board Representative, Dr. Hubach?
Stay there.
Okay. I don't think anybody's, is anybody fighting Dr. Hubach for that? Okay, just wanted to double check. Also, SEAC, Dr. Hubach?
Yeah, I mean, that one's open for grabs too, because I inherited it from Johnny and have not yet attended a meeting, so
Okay.
I think they have one coming up next week.
Yeah, I saw it scheduled for next week. Kelly, is that right?
As of right now, they may be rescheduling it, but as of right now, yes.
Okay, and how often? Is it monthly?
No, it's about 4 to 6 times a year.
Okay,
It moves around.
okay.
There's a lot of people on it, I think, and it's hard to coordinate.
You wanna hold off and come back to it, or is that something you wanna stay on?
I'm fine staying on it.
Okay,
I also have 3 other committees, so
okay.
it wouldn't be hurtful for me to pass that one on to somebody that needs extra.
All right, then we have IGA, Intergovernmental Affairs, meets monthly, Mr. Daniels and Dr. Hubach. I know Mr. Daniels is interested in staying on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, am I.
Anyone else? All right. Budget and Finance meets as needed. That's Mr. M. Hill, myself, and Mr. Daniels. I'm definitely interested in staying on that if there's nobody else that is interested. And Mr. Daniels has said that he's interested in staying. You guys good with that? All right, and then we have Facility meets as needed, Mr. Holbrook and
I think it was Dwayne, but I don't know if that's something you're interested in. It kind of goes along with the
Pretty
PPEA.
much, yeah, with PPEA.
Okay.
so.
That's fine.
okay. So we'll add Mr. Stephen Hill to Facility, and then PPEA would be Mr. Holbrook and Mr. Hill. It kind of goes
Yeah.
along with Facility. Okay.
I'm gonna attend one more meeting for that, next week.
Yep.
And then we'll be doing the changeover.
Okay. All right, and then we've got Curriculum Progress and Outcomes, Dr. Hubach and Ms. Purvis. You guys good with staying on that?
Yeah.
All right, so I will take the Roanoke Valley Gulf School. Yeah, it is a long way.
I mean, I will say, it services our Stanton River and Liberty kids, so I think that's something to think about too, just because
How often do they meet?
it's like 3 times in a school year and then once in the summer.
I mean, I don't mind doing it. My only thing is, and the reason I'm slacking on these committees is I'm on a 14-month contract out of town. I'm only home on the weekends. So I come home on Thursday nights, and I leave again Monday morning, so. But
These are all
I
the
could
same.
pull off like one every few months. I just can't do it like monthly.
They have one more this school year, and then they're doing one in the summer, and usually it's like October.
Yeah.
So it's
I mean-
pretty spread out, and they're not very long.
Okay.
but-
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm gonna withdraw from
Unless
that.
you
Not that I didn't want you.
No.
It's not that I didn't want you, Mr. Hill,
Thanks,
because I
Dr.
do
Woodford.
go.
All right, so Mr. Knight, that sounds like it may work.
Yeah, if it's something like that, it's better for me, yeah.
All right. So, Dr. Hubach, are you good to stay on SEAC?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so here's what I've got. Roanoke Valley Gov School, Mr. Knight. Central Virginia Gov School STEM Academy, Ms. Purvis. CTE Advisory, Mr. Holbrook and Mr. Stephen Hill. Laurel Board Representative, Dr. Hubach. SEAC, Dr. Hubach. And then for IGA is Mr. Daniels and Dr. Hubach. Budget and Finance, Mr. Marcus Hill and Mr. Daniels. Facility is Mr. Holbrook and Mr. Stephen Hill. Curriculum Progress and Outcomes is Dr. Hubach and Ms. Purvis. And then Special Committee, PPEA, is Mr. Holbrook and Mr. Stephen Hill.
I think Kurt needs some more.
Your name's on a lot.
This.
Well, for me, like Laura, if I'm not mistaken, like Laurel Board Representative, is that something you absolutely want to stay on?
Yeah, I have a vested interest there.
Perfect, okay. I can do SEAC. I can do SEAC, because it's in Bedford. If you're okay with that. I mean, your name, I read your name a whole lot on here, and that's not,
It's just a mouthful.
yeah, okay. All right, so I'm gonna take SEAC, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Okay,
I have 2 questions on committees.
yes, sir.
One, I'm assuming, Dr. Woodford, you'll send an email about,
I will.
to loop me in, okay?
I will, and I'm always there
Okay.
at so if something happens and you can't be there, you just tell me and I'll let.
Okay.
Mhm.
If you could
And
loop
I'll
me in
loop
on
you in and get everything to you.
that. Perfect. And then the other one, with, just for the rules and things, I'm not sure. So for our meeting next week that we have, can all 3 of us be there or no?
They cannot.
And then that's an official board meeting.
Okay, even if that person is just sitting over there listening.
Because it's a public meeting, can you
Oh.
not be there and just observe?
Yeah,
All committee meetings are open to the public. If three of you want to go, one of you may not participate in the conversation. You would have to be a silent witness in the,
Would that be okay with you to just listen on this one?
Yeah.
So you can kind of get up to speed and okay. Is that
That
good
works,
with you?
yep.
yes,
Alright.
that's,
Good deal.
Actually, I'm dialing into that one.
Yep.
But I think it's the same rules apply though, right?
Yeah, and let me make a
Yes.
comment, because I don't want it to be misconstrued of SEAC, of going back and forth. All of these committees are just as important. So I want to make sure people understand that. So we're all committed to being on committees and having responsibilities. After I went through that list, that's a whole lot assigned to Dr. Hubach. In the past, the chairman was not part of committees. That's just how it's been. However, I do want to be involved, and so I'm willing to do that. So I want to make sure we're not making light of any committee assignments. They're all equally as important. But after I went through the list and heard Dr. Hubach's name, I think 5 or 6 times, it was like, wait a minute. We need to even this thing out. So I just want to make sure that's publicly said, so.
Well, like you said, they are important. They need to make sure that we do have the right people
Absolutely.
that are interested.
And, you know,
And for public, I guess for public knowledge, you know, the way these committees sort of seem to work out is different people on the board amongst us have different backgrounds and skill sets and interests. And the committees have been able to line up with those interests. For instance, Mr. Holbrook works in construction, so PPEA is perfect for him, right? And so where Ms. Purvis, is really into curriculum because she comes from a teaching background. So just to kind of, for the public's knowledge, the reason we kind of divvy up my meeting next week, I don't think we've met since the last time we met as a board. So, yeah, next meeting next week.
Same thing, CTE, you met, I can tell you the date, but it was last month. And, we don't have another one, like I say, until, I think it's gonna be March.
we'll skip over you.
Let's say,
This purpose.
So we had a CPO meeting, January 29th, and we didn't really discuss the math curriculum that much then. So I'm looking forward to looking at the more details on the math, and just they already mentioned it before, but it'll be available, the new curriculums are supposed to be available here the 19th, 20th, and 21st. So I'm looking forward to doing more with that. And as far as the STEM Academy, we had a brief meeting, and Gov School, we did not meet yet, so.
Dr. Hubach.
So in a little addition to the CPO, the Family Life Curriculum Committee has met once, and we will meet again very soon. And kind of take up that baton again. There's a lot of work to do there, and it's kind of like mushrooming, and there's a lot of stuff to do. So that's actually exciting as we look forward to revamping that, or just making sure that it does what we need it to do as a board. And there's seems to be a consensus of needing to expand at least into the lower grade levels a little bit. Those are not to be ignored because the kids are advancing faster than our curriculum addresses problems. And so there's some interesting stuff going on there. IGA has not met for a little while, and we're trying to iron out some riffles in the difference between the VSBA and SBMA and the way that they keep us informed as to legislative changes from the state and how that affects us as a local board. That too is going to be interesting. So there's some things that need to happen there. Laura met, and they've got a new bus that is coming, an activities bus, which is gonna be a huge blessing to all the kids in terms of being able to safely get them out to doing some things in the community. And some other things going on there just with the upgrading trailers and getting rid of some stuff that's 40 years old and is no longer serviceable, and doing some new things there, so that's been exciting.
Finance Committee, we've met quite a bit over the last 2 months. Randy, I'm assuming we'll meet sometime in March.
When we have state numbers and when we have indication from the Board of Supervisors, what they support on our budget, then we'll meet together.
Good. All right, comments and concerns from school board members. Dr. Hubach, we'll start with you.
I am ecstatic that Mr. Dupere is back with us and that his issues are on the upside anyway, and wish you all the best in the future. Keep you in our prayers.
All right. Ms. Burns?
I met with the PTA in Boonesboro and also just made myself available for the, another day for the Boonesboro as well as Big Island teachers and just kind of getting some feedback from them. It was a really enjoyable day. I learned a lot. One of the things that they keep saying that they really need good counselors and more people to help with some of the challenges that they're having with regulation, like kids self-regulating and needing more paras to help with that. I'm hoping if the weather would behave itself. We're supposed to have a PTA question and answer with Mr. Dupere, and so we'll try to work that out as well. I'm also hoping to try to get to some of the other elementary schools as well as the middle and high schoolers, but I'm one person trying to do all that, and but I'm trying to make myself more available to the teachers to just hear what their challenges are and how we can help, facilitate their roles as well. So.
Okay. Mr. Hill?
Yeah, I'd like to also kind of on what we're saying there, the paras, I was meeting with New London, and the principal there was talking about the intervention design specialist and how much of a role that is continuing to play and how that's a needed position. So I'd love to work with you a little bit more on that, Mr. Dupere. Trying to get up to speed on that and see how that can help our students. I know a couple of weeks ago I spent a day in my kids' classrooms, and they were, there was 1 or 2 students in there that can really derail the whole. And so these IDS workers, I think could help out with that quite a bit.
I'd just like to say sorry to the kids, we're going back to school tomorrow. I'm gonna try to convince them to close. Other than that, that's all I got to say.
This is Friday.
Yeah, right. 3-day weekend.
Well, I've had my thunder stolen twice tonight, so I will just, first I will second what, I usually get to go first. But Dr. Hubach, welcoming Mr. Dupere back and saying we're grateful that you're getting better and we're praying for you. And also, one of the speakers, I guess I could say his name, Mr. Ashwell, said that he thinks it's a good idea that we publicize, how well the school system has done with the testing and our ranking in the state versus how much money we have. And I would second that. I think that's a great thing to publicize. And I'm sure that someone on the staff can put together a nice presentation. And maybe you already did. Okay. And then the last thing I'll say, always have to plug Stanton River Wrestling. So I'll do that again because this weekend is the regional tournament and it's at Stanton River. We're hosting, which doesn't, happen very often. So if you wanna come by, that'll be Saturday. And then the next weekend is the state tournament, and Stanton River will be going for their third in a row state championship, and that'll be in Salem. So 2 more opportunities to see this group of seniors wrestle. There's 8 seniors graduating, 4 of which have signed Division I scholarships, I think. One of them's going to play football. So, I mean, a class like this it's like a once in a lifetime type class, right? You just don't see this level very often. So I would highly recommend either Saturday at Stanton River or the next weekend at Salem, getting a chance to see probably the best, one of the best teams that Virginia has ever seen, and it's here in our county. So,
Well, tonight, the school board was recognized for School Board Month, or during February, recognizing school board. One person that we definitely need to make sure we call out is our school board clerk, Ms. Johnson. She hates attention, but I have to do it.
She does indeed.
Okay. What most people don't realize is, she works with the executive team as part of one job, but then she's also responsible for the board in helping us with administrative and clerical, which she's had the pleasure of working directly with me, 14 months now. So I really appreciate you. We meet on a weekly basis to make sure things that we've discussed are in order and information that's being shared. And so I don't think people realize that, Ms. Johnson is working both sides of the house when it comes to working with the executive team, but then also trying to make sure that the board has taken care of necessary things that we're responsible for too. So, Ms. Johnson, I just want to personally say thank you. And then we have a certificate. And Dora was wondering why I had a flower. I told her it was from my admirer.
I thought it was your Valentine.
Yeah, and she was really concerned, and she's been thinking about that.
Well, I saw Judy walk in.
Yeah, that's right.
That's normal. Please don't.
So just a small token, and then also in your inbox should be an Amazon cart, because I know you love books.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
And Marcus, when I say executive, I include her.
Oh, I understand. Yeah.
She's an integral
We
part.
know she runs the show.
Yeah. We know she's in charge.
No, she doesn't.
So again, Diana, thank you, Ms. Johnson. Really appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you.
Sometimes your role is not easy because you're having to work for both sides, and but we do appreciate what you do. So, all right. Another topic, Mr. Dupere, you mentioned that VHSL did change and make rules this week to go along with the executive order. I just want to begin conversations. I'm glad they decided to do that, but I think it's important to the board for us to understand, if they had not done that, what are our options? And I know VHSL is very important to our athletes and part of our athletic programs. However, as a board, we need to understand what those options are. And so, again, thankful that they decided to follow that executive order. But probably want to look at March of having that on the agenda of just a review, just so the board is reminded, what is our participation with VHSL? I know we've talked about, and Randy, you'll have to keep me honest, but I think it's around $10,000 per zone that we pay VHSL to participate.
I think it's about 10 in total. I have to look back at the invoice, but I'll get that back.
Okay.
I think it's about 10 in total.
So I want to understand that. But just so we understand, VHSL, to me, they're a partner. And again, thankfully, they agreed to meet that executive order, but if they did not, I think this board needs to understand what are our options. And I don't know if Dr. Cornett has had, conversations with other executives in the counties around us. If that were not the case, are there other counties that are interested in creating our own high school league? that meet our standards. So again, the executive order has been followed. I'm happy about that. But you think, is March, Mr. Dupere, is that doable? Okay, all right.
And can I add something to that?
Sure.
I have started looking at all of the executive orders that have anything to do with education and trying to figure out how they apply to us. So that could be.
Me and Ms. Johnson had that same conversation. I absolutely want to make sure we are in compliance with everything that is handed down. Yep.
I'd like to say something too.
Yes, sir.
Same thing, I would like to say to Randy about that. So I know there's a lot of federal regulations tied to any kind of maintenance spending. I don't know if it's.
For the maintenance, we don't get much from the federal, but if it does
Well,
come down the
like
pike, but through how they handle DOE, there's a lot of discussion at the federal level and stuff. But a lot of things, when we ever go after grants and stuff, even previous boards than the city board and stuff, we wanna make sure the board's very clear on anything that has strings attached before we accept any grant. And so it's the executive staff's, desire to make sure we make that very clear before we accept grants and put a burden on the board members in any way.
All right, last topic that I wanted to make sure we covered, Ms. Purvis has mentioned a work session for March 7th. I think all of the board members have agreed to that date as far as availability. I have asked Ms. Purvis to give me topics that are going to be discussed at that work session. But if any of you have topics, one that Ms. Purvis and I have agreed to, that I'm going to be setting the agenda for, is to have some conversation around the SWOT analysis and what's required or what Mr. Dupere is possibly going to need from us to have that conversation during that work session. But if there are other topics, and I've been very vocal with Ms. Purvis, I want to be careful of the topics that we bring to that work session. It's a public meeting, so we can have any topic, but it's only 6:29 on a regular scheduled school board meeting. There's plenty of time for us to bring topics up that we need to talk about. So I don't want to have a work session just to have a work session. I'm not saying it's not important, because the will of the board, you guys have agreed that you want to have that work session. But I do not want to get away from topics that can simply be covered in a regular school board meeting. We're all busy. We all have full-time jobs. I want to take advantage of meeting times that we are here on a regular monthly basis. But again, we've all agreed that we're available that date, March 7th, in the morning. So if there are topics that you have, please send to me for us to get on the agenda. So. All right, any other business that we need to cover? All right, do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
I was getting ready to say. All right, I have a motion from Mr. Holbrook. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. S. Hill. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned.